I'm a trainee male nurse in a psychiatric hospital. On my second day on the job, a hot female patient started hitting on me. I knew what she wanted to achieve through me, but it didn't matter. Everyone has their issues these days. I had plenty of ways to deal with her, but I really didn't expect her level of craziness to be so terrifying. My name is Chun-Zi, and I'm an intern male nurse at a psychiatric hospital. I never imagined that I, a newcomer, would be so lucky with women. The first patient I managed at this psychiatric hospital was named Chun-Xiona. What set her apart from other patients was her stunning beauty and hot figure. But it was said that she had some mental problems, which is why her husband had her forcibly admitted here. She had been here for over 3 years and was already a veteran of this psychiatric hospital, teasing other patients or medical staff all day long. Even ghosts were afraid of her. The medical staff didn't like her, but no one dared to deal with this lunatic. If they provoked her, and she went on a stabbing spree, it would be a huge mess. And when I came to this hospital, the medical staff looked like they had seen a savior. They unanimously agreed that I was the best person to be in charge of Chun-Xiona. As a newcomer, I was unaware of Chun-Xiona's fierce background, so I agreed without much thought. And when I first made my rounds and pushed open the door of room 604, I saw a scene that made my blood boil. Who would have thought that Chun-Xiona would be so bold? She was sunbathing naked in a place like the hospital, which had very little privacy, with no sense of shame. I was so shocked by this steamy scene that I couldn't speak. I quickly slammed the door shut, muttering, see no evil, Amit Ba. As a professional nurse, I had mastered many methods for dealing with emergencies, but I really didn't expect that my first lesson in society would catch me so off guard. When I returned to the nurse's station in a daze, Chun-Xiona followed me. She was obviously coming for me, and the scene in the ward just now was also deliberate. She leaned halfway against the desk at the nurse's station, raised her eyebrows, whistled, and teased me. Hello, handsome. Are you new here? I'm from room 604. Were you the one who rushed into my room while I was changing clothes? Chun-Xiona's tone was very frivolous, and her voice was a bit loud, attracting the attention of everyone around. It made me, a naive young man, blush instantly. Room 604? Are you the patient named Chun-Xiona? Ahem, this is a hospital. Although you live in a single room, you should still be careful to avoid being taken advantage of by others. I pretended to be calm and reminded her kindly, then continued with my work. The work in a psychiatric hospital is different from that in other hospitals. There are patients with various mental illnesses here. Some may seem even more normal than ordinary people, but when they have an episode, their madness reaches a 5-star level and can scare people to death. So we can't relax for a moment. During my free time, I took a look at Chun-Xiona's file. I found that she had no previous history of episodes, only a record of being forcibly sent here for treatment 3 years ago due to a sudden episode in mental disorder. After that, in these 3 years, she had not had any more episodes after taking medication on time, and her condition had improved to the point where she could be discharged. At this time, I couldn't understand why she could be discharged, but chose to stay here instead. Also, what was her purpose in deliberately approaching me? My right eyelid kept twitching, and I always had a bad feeling. As I spent more time in the hospital, I became friends with these patients. Life here was not as demonized as the outside world claimed, with patients being electrocuted if they didn't behave. At least during my time here, I had never seen such a terrifying scene. Chun-Xiona was 10 years older than me. She couldn't stay in the ward and ran around every day, forcing us to search the entire hospital for her every time it was time for treatment and medication. One day, I searched for a long time and finally found her by the hospital wall. Chun-Xiona, what are you doing? You can't get out from here. Absolutely not. Give up. We should go back. I saw Chun-Xiona standing there, her head held high, looking longingly at this towering wall, and I couldn't help but speak to her. After listening to me, Chun-Xiona still didn't say anything, but continued to stare at the wall. After a while, she murmured softly, "Why did he throw me here? Why did he do this?" I didn't hear her clearly, so I asked her again. After listening, she immediately gathered her thoughts and smiled at me. Then, she returned to her usual carefree demeanor. I knew that Chun-Xiona had always wanted to leave, but our psychiatric hospital had a rule that a family member's signature was required to discharge a patient. Otherwise, it was all talk. Even if they were really better, they couldn't leave. Because here, it was actually very difficult to prove that you were not sick, to prove that you were different from others. The nurse who was training me, after learning that Chinchina and I were close, said to me with a dark face, "Z, you're new here. You don't understand anything yet, so I must kindly remind you to stay away from this Chinchina. She's not a good person. Don't get yourself into trouble." The nurse's words kept echoing in my mind, making me even more curious about Chinchina. I even wondered what had happened to Chinchina that made the nurses tremble with fear and avoid her at all costs. And just as I was lost in thought, Chinchina bounced over to me again. Seeing me in a daze, she smiled slyly and said mysteriously, "Nurse C, I know what you're thinking. Come to my ward tonight, and I'll tell you the whole truth." After saying that, she bounced away again, leaving me with even deeper doubts. What did Chinchina want to tell me? Why couldn't she say it now, and had to wait until night? Should I go, or should I not? I hesitated, but in the end my curiosity got the better of me. At around 8 p.m., I knocked on her door. However, after knocking dozens of times, there was no response. Worried about Chinchina's safety, I frowned and quickly pushed the door open and went inside. The room was pitch black. I was wondering why this night owl would turn off the lights so early. Just as I was about to turn on the light, a delicate hand grabbed me. Don't turn on the light. I'm nearsighted, and because the lights were off, I had no idea when Chinchina had come to my side. It wasn't until her warm breath hit my neck that I realized she was there. A man and a woman, alone in a room. With the lights off, the atmosphere instantly became very ambiguous. After a while, Chinchina took my hand, and we sat down on the edge of the bed. "Xiaozhe, actually, I've never been sick. But those people, they all said I was sick and forced me to come here for treatment. I've been here for 3 years. Here, I don't have a phone. I can't have any contact with the outside world. Every day I eat food that's so bland it almost drives me crazy, and I have to take medicine every day. I really feel like I'm going to go crazy even if I'm not already. It's ridiculous to say, but I've thought about escaping countless times. I secretly put on the nurse's clothes and tried to sneak out with them, but I was always caught and brought back. Just because I don't have an access card to get out of the main gate, I thought if I can't go through the main gate, I'll go through the side door. In order to escape this hellhole, I even dug a dog hole, trying to crawl out through it. Who knew that on the first day of digging, I was discovered by the patrolling security guards, and the plan was nipped in the bud. I'm sure the nurses have told you not to have any contact with me. In their eyes, I'm a seriously ill patient. If they could, they'd love to use electric shocks to make me submit and be obedient like the other patients. But put yourself in my shoes. If you were a perfectly normal person, and you woke up one day and were suddenly told you were mentally ill, then you were caught in a place almost isolated from the world, where you could cry out to heaven and earth to no avail. What would you do? Xiaozhe, I have something very important that I need to go out and do. Through 3 years of observation, I know that even if one patient is missing here, no one will notice. Trust me, as long as you are willing to help me escape from here, I will agree to anything you want. Chinchina's voice was very low, and if you didn't listen carefully, you wouldn't know what she was saying. While I was in a daze, she took off all her clothes and without hesitation grabbed my hand and placed it on her body. Feeling the touch in my palm, my head exploded with a buzzing sound. Wow! No wonder Chinchina insisted on keeping the lights off. She was waiting for me here. I'm just a young man in my early 20s, and I have no self-control when it comes to matters of love. In addition, I had unintentionally seen Chinchina's beautiful and hot body before, and at this moment, I couldn't help but fantasize. Then I felt a current run from my head to my toes, making me tingle all over. I tried desperately to suppress the impulsive thoughts in my mind, but after Chinchina took the initiative to kiss me, I completely collapsed. My last line of defense instantly crumbled, and I couldn't help but kiss her passionately. After a few seconds, I finally came to my senses. I pushed Chinchina away abruptly and slapped myself hard. Bah! What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? You're so shameless. After cursing myself a few times, I made a move to leave. Seeing my reaction, Chinchina returned to her usual expression. She spat at me and cursed me for being a spineless man, a good-for-nothing. I was in the wrong and didn't dare to respond. I just wanted to leave quietly. Otherwise, if someone found me here, I would be in big trouble. I might even have to end my internship early and pack my bags and leave. Snap! Just as I was trembling in the dark, feeling the wall and trying to walk out of the ward. Chinchina suddenly turned on the light. When I saw the light turn on, my first reaction was that Chinchina was not wearing any clothes, so I quickly covered my eyes. TSK, what are you doing? You're so dramatic. I opened my eyes and found that I was really embarrassed. Chinchina had already put on her clothes and was standing with her hands folded, her head raised, deliberately looking at me with her nostrils. Seeing this, I scratched my head in embarrassment, instantly feeling like I could dig a 3-bedroom apartment on the spot. Xiaozhe, don't refuse me. You must help me with this, or I'll expose everything you just did to me. Chinchina proudly waved her hand, and I realized that she was holding a voice recorder that she had somehow gotten hold of. Xiaozhe, I really have my difficulties. If you don't help me, then I really can only die. Okay, don't try that on me. Record it if you want. I'm just an intern. At worst, I'll quit. Seeing Chinchina finally reveal her true colors, I was furious and decided to give up. No wonder the nurses at the nurses' station trembled with fear when they heard Chinchina's name. Who would say no? Even ghosts would take a detour when they saw such a scheming woman. Since she couldn't force me, she had to change her approach. A wise man adapts to circumstances, so she quickly changed her attitude and started to play the victim. Chinchina confessed that 3 years ago, she was framed by her husband, Fong Ming. Although she was a normal person, she had no way to prove that she was not sick in this environment. Furthermore, even if she recovered, she couldn't leave here without Fong Ming's consent. Speaking of Fong Ming, she gnashed her teeth in anger. She said that her husband, Fong Ming, was a poor country boy before he met her, while she was a pampered rich girl. They were not from the same social class, nor were they a good match. Fong Ming was with her for her family's wealth. Her parents had made this clear during their engagement and strongly opposed their marriage. But at that time, she was blinded by love and believed that life was precious, but love was even more valuable. If her parents didn't agree, she would sever ties with them. And so, to defend her love, she moved out of the grand villa, married Fong Ming, and squeezed into a rented room in the urban village. Seeing her resolve, and unable to bear her hardship, her parents relented and accepted Fong Ming as their son-in-law. Fong Ming was a twisted man. He comfortably enjoyed the conveniences and benefits provided by his wealthy and influential in-laws, yet he despised them. Deeply resentful, he felt inferior for accepting their help, constantly believing they looked down on him and lacked respect. At first, Chinchina simply thought Fong Ming had a strong sense of pride. She didn't realize he was a truly wicked scoundrel. By the time she discovered this bloody truth, it was far too late. Fong Ming was a genuine wolf in sheep's clothing. He schemed and cultivated his power, seizing his in-laws' company within a few short years and manipulating Chinchina completely. Not only that, but he openly flaunted his affair with his mistress, showing no regard for Chinchina's feelings. It was said the mistress later became pregnant with his child. By the time Chinchina came to her senses, she was trapped in a mental hospital, her cries for help unanswered. She couldn't contact the outside world. But while watching television in her room, she saw the news of her parents' accidental death in a car crash. She suspected Fong Ming was involved. Her family had encountered Fong Ming, and their luck had truly run out. She couldn't swallow this injustice. She had to take revenge and make him pay a heavy price. Hearing her story, I was moved. I never imagined the seemingly carefree Chinchina had such a tragic past. Her husband killed her parents and then committed her to a mental hospital. If it were me, I would have gone mad. My strong empathy compelled me to take a risk and help her. Helping you escape isn't a big problem. There are many abandoned patients here, so even if you run, it won't cause much attention. But I have a condition. After you leave, you absolutely cannot betray me. This is a violation of the rules, and if it's exposed, I'll be severely punished. If you can agree to this, I'll help you, I said seriously. I'm an honest person. It wasn't easy for me to decide to go out on a limb for her. Chinchina was smart. Even if I hadn't said anything, she understood my predicament. To reassure me, she nodded immediately, agreed to my request, and even signed a written agreement to show her sincerity. Don't worry, I'll keep a low profile after I get out. I have only one goal: revenge. I'll make Fong Ming pay. I'll avoid any other trouble. After hearing her assurance, We quickly began planning our escape. We discussed various methods and finally chose the safest and most reliable one. The hospital had 24-hour surveillance, and staff needed key cards to exit. Patients had no way to escape without permission. Our plan was for Chinchina to use my card and clothes to slip out unnoticed during my night shift. Chinchina's escape would be investigated internally, but it wouldn't be reported to higher authorities. They would cover it up. A thorough investigation from above would be problematic for everyone involved, potentially uncovering other past issues. With this in mind, we boldly began our plan. But what Chinchina didn't expect was to be picked up by the police immediately after escaping. And what she didn't expect even more was that I had called the police. I was the one who sent her to jail. Chinchina was taken to the police station for further investigation. I immediately went to cooperate with the police. When Chinchina saw me present her medical records showing no history of mental illness, she was stunned, then stared at me in fury. "Songzae, you scumbag. You tricked me. Enough, go to jail. Stop your whining. This is the retribution you deserve." My goal was achieved, so I didn't need to pretend to be an innocent young man in front of her. I knew Chinchina's true identity. What she told me that night was half-truth. She hid many things, like how she killed someone 3 years ago and faked a severe mental illness to escape punishment. What she didn't realize was that my identity wasn't simple either, and I was after her. The person she killed 3 years ago was my father. He was a security guard and had inadvertently offended this spoiled young lady, who pushed him to the ground in anger. He never woke up. The forensic report concluded the cause of death was a sudden stroke. When I learned about my father's death and Chinchina's manipulation of the legal system, I was furious. But I was a powerless college student at the time, unable to fight against their influence. Could only watch helplessly as Chinchina lived a carefree life in the mental hospital. With the death of my father, the pillar of our family, our home collapsed dramatically and never recovered. My mother, overwhelmed by grief, passed away not long after. So, how could I not hate, with all these things happening one after another? A life for a life, and to let my parents rest in peace, I decided I couldn't just sit and wait any longer. Even if it cost me my life, I was determined to make Chinchina, the murderer, spend the rest of her days in prison. For this goal, even though I was already a senior in college, I switched to nursing for my postgraduate studies and chose to intern at the very mental hospital where Chinchina was staying. Chinchina was isolated in there, cut off from information. She didn't know my background and thought I was just a naive fool. So she planned to use me to escape this hellhole. Her plan was beautiful. She would escape, immediately get plastic surgery, and live a new life with a brand new face and identity. And I, the big sucker, would cover her tracks, arrange everything, and bear all the risks. If things really went south, she would drag me down with her. If she died, we'd all die together. How could I possibly let her have her way? Her imagination was beautiful, but reality is cruel. She never dreamed that as soon as she escaped the wolf's den, she would immediately enter the tiger's lair. What awaited her was a justice delayed for 3 years, and she had to pay the price for her past mistakes. But what I didn't expect was that, after a few days, things took a huge turn. I thought that Chinchina would be spending the rest of her life in prison. But to my surprise, the one who ended up being arrested and imprisoned was her husband, Fongming. This really shocked me. What was going on? Why did Chinchina escape again? How could this bitch be so hard to kill? I was furious, but helpless, because I didn't even have a chance to get near Chinchina. After learning the date of Chinchina's release, I waited for her at the gate. I thought that since the law couldn't punish her, I would solve it the Jianghu way. Anyway, I was already an orphan with nothing to lose, so I wasn't afraid of anything. But after she got out, she struck first, giving me an earful, and I finally learned the truth. It turned out that the real murderer of my father was not Chinchina, but her husband, Fongming. Back then, Fongming had an argument with my father at the company and, in a fit of rage, pushed him to the ground, from where he never woke up. Realizing that someone had died, Fongming's first thought was to find a scapegoat to take the blame for everything. And his first impulse was to make his wife, Chinchina, who had never experienced the dangers of the world, take the fall. Initially, Chinchina was unwilling to go to jail for him, because their relationship had already been strained at that time, and Chen Xiana had been giving Fong Ming the cold shoulder for a long time. But then Fong Ming started to threaten her with the safety of her parents, forcing her to confess to the crime. And there was even more that she didn't expect. Fong Ming continued to pull off one shady trick after another. Because they were still married, Fong Ming didn't want Chen Xiana's imprisonment to affect his career, so he resorted to any means necessary, exploiting loopholes in the law, and sent Chen Xiana to a mental hospital. After arranging all this, Fong Ming's good days began. He paid someone to run over Chen Xiana's parents in a car accident, and then brought his mistress back to their home, openly living together. Meanwhile, Chen Xiana was trapped in the mental hospital, filled with depression and anxiety. She constantly thought about tearing the scumbag apart, but her abilities were limited, and she couldn't even escape the mental hospital. And just when she was almost desperate, she finally met me. The first time she saw me, she already knew who I was because I looked so much like my father. So, how could she not know the purpose of my internship at this hospital this time? But it didn't matter. I was coming to her with a purpose, and she also saw value in using me. As long as she could escape from here, she would have a chance to overturn everything Fong Ming had arranged. She had a lot of evidence that was unfavorable to Fong Ming. But she knew this wasn't enough. She still had one last trick up her sleeve. The first thing she did upon arriving at the police station was to borrow a phone from the police and call Fong Ming. She knew that with her being at the police station, Fong Ming would be more anxious than anyone, especially since his secret was about to be exposed. Sure enough, not long after hanging up the phone, Fong Ming rushed over, looking disheveled. Seeing his anxious and flustered appearance, Chen Xiana couldn't help but sneer. Then, she quietly turned on the voice recorder and slowly drew out Fong Ming's words. Although Fong Ming was craftier than anyone and wary of Chen Xiana, the current Chen Xiana was no longer the naive girl she once was. With her love blindness cleared, her fighting power could directly incapacitate Fong Ming. Just like that, within a few days, Chen Xiana presented strong evidence proving that she was not a murderer, nor was she a woman suffering from mental illness. The one manipulating everything behind the scenes was her beastly husband, Fong Ming. And upon hearing that Fong Ming was under investigation, Chen Xiana and I both breathed a sigh of relief. Yes, I had actually been in the know all along. Chen Xiana and I had sided together long ago, but we knew that Fong Ming had people secretly observing our general movements. To make Fong Ming lower his guard, we had to put on a show of dog-eat-dog. The reason Chen Xiana was able to win in one move was because I was her external support. After escaping from the mental hospital, why did we choose to call the police and come to the police station? Because it was far safer here than outside. Outside, it might not be long before Chen Xiana met a tragic end at Fong Ming's hands, dying miserably on the street. Therefore, every step of our plan had to be extremely cautious. Otherwise, there would be no chance of turning things around. People are doing, and the heavens are watching. There is reincarnation in heaven and earth. And who has the heavens ever spared? What awaited Fong Ming next would be a delayed, righteous judgment. This bad person would eventually pay a painful price for all the evil deeds he had done. Upon hearing that Fong Ming was sentenced to death because of these, Chen Xiana and I finally felt a sense of relief. Fong Ming had killed my father and also killed Chen Xiana's parents. He had also stolen everything that rightfully belonged to Chen Xiana, and now this outcome could finally soothe the grief in our hearts. What made us even more delighted was that the mistress Fong Ming had found was not carrying his child at all. After hearing that Fong Ming was imprisoned and sentenced to death, the mistress cursed and fled the city with the child. Chen Xiana and I were extremely amused when we heard this. Truly, karma never fails. The end.